What kind of man welcomes the company of the hurting, helpless, and the hopeless?
What kind of a man can heal the pain with a single soft touch?
What kind of a man multiplies hope and freedom as easily as he does fish and bread?
Who else can turn our dusty old religion into a brand new relationship?
What kind of man would claim to be God in the flesh, but then allow that same flesh to be torn apart?
What kind of a man would embrace betrayal,
Insults,
Torture,
Mockery.
And death.
and yet live to tell about it.
Nobody but Jesus.
Nobody but Jesus.
Nobody.
who could speak with such authoritative words and yet drench them with compassion?
Who could be strong enough to still the storms, yet be so meek and humble?
Who could allow the hands that created the universe to also be nailed into a wooden cross?
Who could choose patience despite deserving immediate and complete obedience?
Who could be blameless and without fault, but still endure the judgment others deserve?
Nobody but Jesus.
Nobody but Jesus.
nobody.
Who will love us like him?
Who will be with us when all others have left?
Who comforts us in suffering?
Who is our peace in the midst of anxiety?
Who reassures me when my mind is drowning in doubt?
Who accepts me as I am, with no strings attached?
Who else would die for me while I was sinking in sin?
Who else can turn the grave into Easter morning?
Nobody.
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 Nobody but Jesus.
We are continuing our Easter series this month, and so here's the basic premise behind this month is we are taking a look at the moments that make up the Easter story, and we're kind of revisiting those moments, and we're saying, what does that mean for us today in the year 2025 as we walk our lives in a culture that is completely different from the first culture, first century culture where Jesus was, and what does this mean for us today? And so a couple weeks ago, we talked about Jesus' preparation for Easter and how he prepared himself and his disciples for Easter. And we talked about last week Jesus' journey to the cross and how he went willingly. And this week, we are talking about the celebration that had to be that first Easter morning, that had to be that first time when you hear, man, Jesus is alive. So, but first, before we get to the whole Jesus is alive thing, let's set the scene a little bit, okay? It's Easter morning. Jesus is still dead, as far as everybody knows. He's in the grave. The disciples have fled, they've scattered. Peter has denied Jesus. I imagine they are rethinking the events of the past night, and they're wondering, holy cow, what is next for us? Like, our world has just been rocked. Where do we go from here? What do we do as a follower of Jesus, whether you are one of the 12 disciples or one of the other hundreds, thousands of followers of Jesus? Where do we go from here? What do we do? What's the next step? And so these women that were strong followers of Jesus decide, okay, we have to decide to do just the next right thing. We have to put the next foot forward, and we're just going to take it one moment at a time, and we are going to do the next right thing. And so the next right thing to do was to take spices to the grave because they didn't want Jesus' body to start stinking. And so they take these spices to the grave, and when they get there, the stone is rolled away. Now, I want to stop right there. The stone is rolled away and Jesus is gone. When we read the Easter story, I don't know if you are anything like me, but when we read the Easter story, we read the stone is rolled away, Jesus is gone. And in my mind, I have heard the Easter story so many times that has almost become just normal. Like, stones rolled away. That's what's supposed to happen. And that's just a normal part of the story. And for me, at times, it has lost like the immensity of that moment. And so I want to kind of take it back just a little bit. How many of you have or have had in the past a pet that you just absolutely love? Anybody? Okay. All right. Me too. I've had lots of them. So our family, when my wife Kirsten and I got married, I knew that she wanted a little Shih Tzu puppy. And so I decided that before we got married, I was going to get her a puppy as a wedding present. And so this is Moose. Moose was our little Shih Tzu puppy, and we had him for years. He was an awesome dog, absolutely incredible. So many great stories. This is Moose at the beginning of his life. This is Moose near the end of his life. And a few years ago, he got sick. He was an old dog. He lived an absolutely incredibly happy, healthy, spoiled life. But as old dogs do, it was time that he got sick enough that we just didn't want him to suffer anymore. So we had to put him down. And we brought Moose home because we wanted to bury him. And it was a really difficult day for our family. It was difficult for Kirsten and myself. It was difficult for our kids. It was even difficult for our other dogs that were in the house. And they didn't really understand. And so I went out to the back corner of our backyard and I dug a grave for Moose. And I remember standing there digging the grave thinking, I have to dig this really deep. Because if I wake up in the morning and that grave is dug up, it's going to be pure mayhem at our house. There's going to be tragedy and tears and questions, and our kids are going to go start searching for clues as to what happened to Moose. Did an animal come get him? Or did somebody come? Now, picture in your mind with me, okay? All right? You've got your pet. You've buried your pet. You wake up the next morning, and there is a shovel next to the grave, and your pet is gone. What do you do in that moment? I don't know if you are anything like me, but in that moment, I am going to find whoever did this, and they will pay, right? Anybody with me? Like, I am going to make sure, and if we woke up that morning and Moose was missing, and we knew it wasn't like an animal, but someone had come and taken our dog, like, we would be looking for clues, we would be throwing down, it would not be cool, our kids would be heartbroken. Now, when we read the story of Jesus rising from the dead, I think oftentimes I forget to put myself in the place of these women, where they come to the grave and he's gone. Holy cow, he's gone. Who did this? Like, first of all, who can move the stone? This had to be like a group effort. Who could have moved the stone? Who took Jesus' body? What are their plans for what they're going to do with Jesus' body? Whatever those plans may be, like, we've got to get Jesus back. This is not okay. We've got to make sure that, holy cow, like, where do we even begin to go from here? Jesus is gone. And I think before we can really understand the pureness of the celebration of the moment that Jesus is alive, we have to understand the depth of the despair of understanding he's gone. Like, if the cross wasn't enough, now he's gone. Like, we can't even have closure because he's gone. And these women are feeling all of these emotions in this moment. And I think a lot of times we read this Easter story with the end of the story in mind. And we know, holy cow, guys, just wait a few moments and you're going to find out he's alive. And I think it's really important that we take ourselves and we place ourselves right there in that moment. Because what happens is that they go from deep despair to sudden hope. They go from deep despair to sudden hope. These women would have been traumatized at the sight of the stone rolled away and the sight of Jesus' body gone. And so you can imagine, like, I imagine that they just are breaking down in tears. Like, that's what I'm thinking. Like, if Moose had gotten dug up, let alone someone I love, I would be just devastated. And this is when these two men arrive on the scene. And so okay, again, like, we read these stories in this very, monotone kind of fashion. We're like, two men arrive in gleaming clothing, and we're like, yeah, that's normal. Angels in the Bible, that's what happens. Angels arrive in the Bible, and they show up in gleaming clothing, and we're like, okay, cool, there's angels there. But, like, you've got these women that are just breaking down, they're broken, they're crushed, and all of a sudden, there's these two men that appear out of thin air, and, like, they're glowing, and they've got these gleaming clothes on, and, like, just the sheer panic and fear and frustration and sadness and depth and, like, the emotions, their bodies just had to be physically shaking in this moment. And these men appear, and Luke describes it like this: the women were frightened. Yeah, they were frightened. They were terrified. And these men say this in Luke chapter 24, verses 5 through 9. First, they tell them not to be afraid. And then they say, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He isn't here, but has been raised. Remember what he told you while he was still in Galilee. The human one," Jesus, "must be handed over to sinners, be crucified, and on the third day rise again." Then they remembered his words. When they returned from the tomb, they repeated all these things to the 11 and all the others. Huge twist ending. Jesus isn't gone. He's not been taken. He's alive. And these men that showed up in gleaming clothes, these angels, point these women back to the words of Jesus, and the women are like, "Oh, that's it! Yes, this is incredible. This was so much bigger than anything that we could have ever imagined." And so they return, and again, put yourself in the position of these women. Like, they go back to the disciples. They're like, "Guys, you got to listen. This thing happened. The stone was rolled away. Jesus was gone." We were like, "Holy cow, what is going on?" These two men appear out of nowhere, like gleaming clothes, all this stuff. They say, "Jesus is alive, guys. Listen, remember what he said? He said, I'm going to die, and then I'm going to raise myself back up. He did it. He's alive. He's alive. He's alive." Just pure celebration in that moment. And they remembered that Jesus said he was going to do it, and he did it. And then the incredible thing starts happening. Not only do angels start appearing to people, but Jesus himself starts appearing to people. Can you imagine, all right? Again, imagine with me for just a moment if you could spend 5 more minutes with someone that has passed away. 5 more minutes, like they just show up, they're like, "Hey, what's up?" Whoa, like hugs, tears, celebration, like, oh my goodness, this is the most incredible thing ever. You're alive, you're here. Let's hang out, let's spend time together. Jesus starts showing up to people, and I love this. First, he shows up to Mary, who is a lady that played a pivotal role in multiple occasions in Jesus' life. And then he shows up to these other women that also came to the tomb with Mary. And then he starts showing up to the disciples. And just imagine the type of celebration that must have started occurring, not only with these people as they experience Jesus showing up, but the buzz around town as people are starting to say, "Dude, like, he came to me. he showed up. I saw him in the flesh. I got to talk to him. Like, we did our secret handshake. We hugged. We high-fived. It was absolutely incredible. It was the most amazing thing ever. Have you ever been a part of a celebration that is just like, you feel like you're floating because you're just so pumped up? I remember when I was in high school, our football team was really, really good. There was only one problem, was that in the first round of the state tournament, we played the number one team in the state. And we knew that the likelihood of us winning was not very good. It was just this team that we were playing against just crushed it every single year. They always win in state championships. They just were absolutely incredible. And I will never forget sitting at that game, watching our team do a risky play to go for it on fourth down, and they scored a touchdown. They took an early lead. And it was kind of back and forth, but at the end of the game, we were ahead and we had won 14-7. We went nuts. I mean, the students, we jumped out of the bleachers. We jumped over the fence. We ran out to the middle of the football field. It was just mayhem. Just everybody just jumping and going crazy and screaming and yelling. Have you ever been a part of anything like that? This is just a very minor thing, a minor comparison. A high school football game doesn't even begin to compare to seeing Jesus alive. Jesus is alive. The celebration that must have taken place in that moment was absolutely incredible. It was a celebration for the ages. And the book of Luke ends defining the celebration in that moment. In Luke chapter 24, verses 52 and 53, it says this: they worshiped him, and they returned to Jerusalem overwhelmed with joy. And they were continuously in the temple praising God. Continuously praising. Continuously celebrating. Continuously sharing what Jesus had done. Now here's the big question. What does this mean for us in the year 2025? We obviously are very, very far removed from the original resurrection day. We are also very far removed from the initial hearing of that message. What I mean by that is we have heard the Easter story so many times that we know it. And it's just kind of become, yeah, that's what happens on Easter. Jesus rose from the dead. This story, though, has significance. It has significance for us in the fact that he died and he rose so that we could be saved and be with him forever. But it has some significance for us also in the way that we live our lives and the way that we interact with others. And so I want to share with you guys two ways that this story has significance for you today, right now in 2025. First one is this: everyone is valuable and important at this celebration. You'll notice that when Jesus first rises from the dead, Jesus is alive. The first people that hear the message are Mary and a group of women. The first person that Jesus shows up to is Mary. The second group that Jesus shows up to is the group of women that were with Mary. Now, this is huge. In this culture, if I'm honest, much like today, women were not given the rights and the respect that they deserve. And Jesus, every opportunity he had to lift up people that felt less than, he made sure he was raising up their status. He made sure that they knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that they were valuable, they were welcome, they were a part of things, they were important. They could be the ones that were changing things. They could be the ones that were going out and making a difference. And so Jesus chose to trust this message, this celebration, this important moment, the moment that would say, hey, this changes history from now until forever. He trusted that to a group of people that would have been looked down on in their culture. You know what that tells me? That tells me that you are an important part of this celebration still today. I don't know where you're at in your life. I don't know if you feel like you are looked down on, or if you feel like a second-class citizen in times. But my guess is that as middle school and high school students, there are a lot of times that you are not given the respect that you deserve. And I would say this: the Easter story not only shares for you the fact that Jesus came to save you so that you could spend eternity with him. The Easter story, the fact that Jesus chose to use women, tells me that whether you are in middle school, high school, whether you are a woman or a man, it doesn't matter who you are, what you are, Jesus wants to use you. You are valuable, you are important, and you are an important part of this celebration today, right now. You can go and you can lead and you can do big things for God's kingdom. Jesus trusted these women, the people nobody listened to share the most important message ever. And you'll notice they went and they told the men that followed Jesus. They told the 11. So you've got this group of women that people wouldn't have listened to, that were trusted to go tell the people that were the closest to Jesus that everybody probably would have listened to. Jesus says, man, it doesn't matter where you think you fall, I want to use you. I think you're important. I think you're valuable, and I want to use you to spread this important message of the celebration. Everyone is important and valuable. Second thing is this: Jesus wants to use you. He wants to use you. He's got a plan for you. Jesus starts showing up to all these people. And again, it doesn't matter where you think you fall, but think about this. Jesus starts showing up to Peter, who denied him. Jesus starts showing up to the disciples who turned around and ran. Jesus starts showing up to a group of 500 people. And here's my question: how many of those 500 people were standing in the crowd as Jesus shows up thinking, holy cow, just a few days ago, I mocked him? And Jesus shows up and he says, listen, your past doesn't define you. That's what the cross was for. I took care of that. I paid for that. I've got a plan for you. Let's go. Let's do this thing. I've got a plan for you. I want to use you to spread this message. I want to use you in incredible ways among your sphere of influence. I want to use you to reach people that nobody else can reach. I want to use your gifts and your talents and your abilities, your passions, the things that you love, so that as you go out and you do those incredible things, you can influence and impact people that also love those things. You see, Jesus sends a super critical message on Easter morning as we celebrate the fact that he's alive. Jesus says, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what society thinks about you. I think you're important and valuable. And Jesus says, it doesn't matter what you've done. The past is the past. I want to use you. I want to use you. With the cross and with the resurrection, your past is forgiven. Jesus wants to use you for the future. Guys, this moment, this Easter morning, like, I just imagine groups of people getting together and just like jumping and hugging and dancing, and like people breaking out instruments and they're singing, clapping, and just people going nuts because he is alive. And I imagine there are people that not only were excited about the fact that he was alive, but really took it to heart that, like, wow, he wants to use me. That's worth celebrating. He died and he wants to not only be with me, but he wants to use me. Wow, that's worth celebrating. And so the practical challenge this week is simply this. This week, I just want you to celebrate. Celebrate the fact that Jesus is alive. Celebrate the fact that he finds you valuable. Celebrate the fact that he wants to use you. And maybe for you, that is going into a place and singing your heart out. Maybe for you, that is turning on the radio and having an absolutely incredible dance party in your room all by yourself or with a group of friends. Or maybe for you, that is sitting down and just quietly contemplating what this truly means for your life. But this week, I want to challenge you to intentionally take some time and truly celebrate the fact that Jesus is alive. Put yourself in the place of the women at the tomb. Put yourself in the place of Jesus showing up to you. What would he say to you? What would you do? How would you respond? And take some time and truly just celebrate the incredible moment that was and is Jesus' resurrection. Let me pray for you guys. God, thank you for rising.